So just the other day, Wabi Cycles opened their pre-orders for their Thunder model. This is their wide tire, single speed, gravel, cyclocross, do-it-all road bike, single speed road bike that is. It's got rim brakes, it's got room for probably up to 45 millimeter wide tires, all steel. Let's talk about the bike, some of the pros, some of the cons, my experience with it, and hopefully this will help you in deciding if you should place a pre-order for this Thunder or maybe wait for something else. So I've had the Thunder since December of last year, so probably about 10 months. Now I have not ridden it a whole bunch, but I've ridden it enough where I know how it feels, I know how it's going to react to certain scenarios. I've ridden it on gravel, I've ridden it on road, uphills, downhills. It handles very similarly to the Wabi Classic, which again is an all-steel single-speed road bike. But the geometry on this one just feels a touch longer and a touch more relaxed, something that I really like. I always enjoyed the geometry of the Wabi Classic, however at times it can feel just a bit too aggressive, just a bit too twitchy. This is just toned down enough where you can still maneuver the bike really easily. It's still very agile, very sporty feeling. But I would be a little bit more confident on this bike if I was going down a fast downhill or a super squirmy downhill. And of course, because I have wider tires on this bike, I would feel a lot more confident riding anything from light gravel all the way to heavy duty single track. So something else that's nice about the Wabi Thunder is just the simplicity of the bike. Wabi does a great job of having everything you need to completely build up or rebuild your Wabi. They have tools, they have bottom brackets, they have headsets, they have everything you need. And about a year or so ago, my Wabi Classic, the bottom bracket was creaking. I actually went ahead and purchased a couple of tools from their website and a new bottom bracket, and I was able to do that all by myself. I'm able to change the bottom bracket. I don't know about the headset. You probably need to have a press, some sort of like a headset press, but I'm sure you could get that. But compared to bicycles that you buy nowadays that have disc brakes, hydraulic disc brakes, internal wire cables, Di2 cables running all over the place, internal cable routing, handlebars that are one piece and you can't change the height or the width of them, a seat post that's proprietary so you can't just swap it out super easily with a 27.2 millimeter seat post. The simplicity of the Wabi Thunder really gives me peace of mind that if I do run into a problem, I know that I can most likely fix it myself and I don't need any special tools to do that. Something I really like about this particular bike is the color. This desert turquoise color I really enjoy. I think the past 4 or 5 bicycles that I bought before this one, they were either all black or some form of light blue or medium blue. So it's really nice to have a bright colored bike. And it also helps, sometimes I do ride at night and I always have lights on when I ride at night, but it does help having a brighter colored bike. It's a little bit more visible for drivers or pedestrians or other cyclists. That way they can see you as opposed to if you were wearing all black and riding a black bike, for example. Now they don't have the desert turquoise anymore. The colors are like this lighter gray color and the all black color. If it were me, I would just go with all black. You can't go wrong with all black. The desert turquoise is nice, but all black, absolutely great. You can't go wrong. And if you want some color, just change the bar tape. You can always go with silver components. I tend to like black components, but that's what I would do if I was getting a Wabi Thunder today and placing a pre-order. I'd definitely go with all black. You can't go wrong with all black. The wheels that they spec on the Wabi Thunder are actually really good. They do come in at just under 2,000 grams, which does give them a little bit more get up and go. They're nowhere near the sub 15s. However, these wheels are much stronger and you probably don't even need to true them at all. I've built BMX wheels before, so I know that if the wheel has a bit of a wobble, I know how to correct that with a spoke wrench, but not everyone does. But maybe you don't know how to do it, or maybe you don't want to be bothered with doing it all the time with a pair of sub 15s, the Wabi lightweights, which are just, I think, 32 holes. The nice thing about these wheels, which is the Wabi CX Urban wheel set, is they've got more than enough spokes, so the wheel is nice and strong, but also, you see this little black piece right here? This is a wear indicator. So if you're constantly riding your bike in the rain or in the gravel or just in all weather, which is kind of what the Thunder is designed to do, this is going to show you when the wheel starts to wear away. Whereas with Wabi's regular wheels like this one, it doesn't have that. You'll have to check it with a straight edge or you're pretty much just guessing. The thing I like about these wheels is the internal width is 18 millimeters. 18 millimeters is great. The internal width on their standard wheels are like 13 millimeters. They're super narrow. The internal width on these, much wider. It makes riding wider tires just sit better, feel better, handle better. The current configuration of this bike, I'm running Continental Grand Prix 4-season tires in 32 millimeters. I've got some SKS Race Blade Pro XL fenders, my favorite fenders ever. Super easy to go on, super easy to go off, great coverage. Still got my flat pedals. I've got 44 tooth in the front. I'm on the easy setting, which is a 19 tooth. Just because I was riding this bike in the rain for the past few days, I wanted to test it out, and I just decided to leave it on the easy setting. That way I can kind of just sit down and chill, and I really don't have to stand up as much unless I'm going over a big hill. Brooks saddle, still got it, still going strong. Now I did change the brakes. These are the TRP CX 8.4 brakes. They are the linear pull, what do you call them? Mini V brakes. So the reason I changed them is just because I found the cantilever brakes, they were a little bit lacking in the stopping power. And when I put the salmon red cool stop pads on the cantilever brakes, they ended up squealing, shuddering, just making a whole bunch of noise. So I wanted to test out a new pair of brakes. I got the red ones. I think it looks pretty nice. You don't have to get red, you can get black. I would not go with the standard V brakes if you're gonna run drop levers like I am, just because the pull ratios are all screwed up and you're gonna have to run them really close to the rim and might cause you some issues. But so far so good. I will say that the mini V brakes, they feel a bit spongier, but the power is there. But the modulation is weird. Sometimes I feel like I have to grab them. They bite sometimes and they don't bite other times, but the brakes don't squeal. I did ride through some puddles and ride through the rain, and aside from getting my rims dirty and the brake pads dirty from riding in the rain, the bike ended up stopping perfectly fine with these pads and these brakes. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep these brakes because I think the cantilevers just made a better feel. However, I'm testing them right now. So far, so good. Stops the bike, stops the bike. So the Thunder is a great wide tire single speed road bike that's super simple. A lot of single speed road bikes have disc brakes. They're a bit heavier. Maybe they have more slack geometry. But the Thunder from Wabi is going to keep that sporty geometry and just feel more lively and agile. Now, there is one Achilles heel to the Thunder, and it's what I was just talking about. It's the brakes. I don't have a problem with rim brakes. I really enjoy the rim brakes on my Wabi Classic, the standard rim brakes, the caliper style. I ran the Shimano Ultegra rim brakes. Now I'm running a pair of TRP RG957 that fit up to 32 millimeter wide tires. Those brakes, modulation is great. They never make any noise. Solid feel. I've got a pair of Cool Stop Salmon brake pads in there. In the rain, perfectly fine. No issues with those brakes at all. And rim brakes, super simple. You don't need hydraulic fluid. You don't need a bleed kit. It just a pair of Allen keys and a wire cutter, and you can overhaul the entire braking system with rim brakes. Now this is actually the fourth time swapping these brakes out. I had the cantilevers on at first, and it was last winter. They did okay. Around the springtime, they started to squeal like crazy. Then I bought the mini V brakes. The mini V brakes, they did give a lot more stopping power. However, they did squeal with the Cool Stop Salmons on there. And the brake pad feel, the brake feel was just so mushy, it just drove me crazy. It did not feel good. After that happened, I went back to the cantilever brakes. I figured out, I researched online where to set the cables, the certain angles, how to get the most power from them. And I just ran them with basic black brake pads. They did the job, but I did find that sometimes the power wasn't there, that bite wasn't there. So now I went back to the mini V brakes, and I had the black brake pads on there, but the standard black brake pads pretty much didn't work if you're riding in the rain. It's like the braking just wasn't there. So I did put the Cool Stop Salmon pads back in. Thankfully, after I sanded them down, there's no issues right now. They don't squeal and they stop fine in the rain. I'm probably going to try cantilevers one more time with the Cool Stop Salmon pads, and I hope I don't get any fork shudder. I hope I don't get any sort of squeaking or anything like that. But this is the one thing that's actually really frustrated me about this bike. I've spent more time tinkering with these wide tire rim brakes than I have with any of the disc brakes I've had. And I have 3 bikes with disc brakes, and I've even bled my disc brakes on my very first road bike. Not really a big deal. Sometimes you get a little bit of that ting, 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 or you have to clean them up, but it's nowhere near as much work as these wide tire style rim brakes, either cantilevers or V brakes, have given me. I'm constantly trying to toe in the pads. I'm constantly trying to get the modulation to feel better. If it feels good and doesn't squeal, it doesn't stop right. If it stops right, it squeals like crazy to the point where it pierces your ears. This is the one thing that would have me questioning if I should have gotten this bike or if I should have just gotten another Wabi Classic and then just dealt with only being able to go up to a 32mm wide tire. Now, a couple of things that Wabi could have done, or something that I could have done, I could have gone with one of those bikes, one of those single speed bikes that have disc brakes down here. Wabi could have given us disc brakes on this bike. However, even though the rim brakes on this particular bike have been very frustrating, I'd still rather work out those issues just because I'm still in the trial and error stage. And I do think that once I get to the point where the rim brakes work fine and they're not frustrating, the bike's going to be perfect. There's not going to be any issues aside from wearing your rims away if you're constantly riding in the rain, but that's just rim brakes. Pros and cons, rim brakes are simpler, just easier to work on. So my recommendation, if you know you want to run 35mm tires, 40mm tires, or maybe you're a fixed gear rider and you're only just going to ride that front brake. Maybe you're riding track lacrosse. I don't recommend anyone ride no brakes anywhere unless you're on the track, racing on the track, because then you can't have brakes. If you're okay dealing with a slightly harder rim brake setup to run 35, 40, 43mm wide tires, then yeah, absolutely, the Wabi Thunder, you're going to love it. And all in all, it's probably easier just to work out the rim brake issues than it is if you had a crazy disc brake issue or those cable disc brakes. Now for me, the reason why I did go back to the TRP Mini V brakes was because I found that when I ride a 38mm wide tire, it just makes the bike too sluggish for me. I'm riding on the road 99% of the time. The only time I ride gravel is if I have to plan to ride gravel, and I have to either drive an hour or ride my bike well over an hour. Gravel is not at my front doorstep here in New York City, so I'm okay just running the 32mm GP 4-season tires. Those tires, they're supple, they're also fast, they're puncture resistant. They're a perfect tire for a single speed training bike, maybe a bike you want to take out in the rain, or if you're riding on rough roads here in the city and you want something that's going to be equally supple but also fast, but also pretty puncture resistant. In my experience, gravel tires, they can sometimes be fast and comfortable rather, but you're going to sacrifice that puncture resistant. So the Grand Prix 4-season tires and 32mm from Continental, this is my favorite tire. Now, if I'm always going to run this tire, these tires will fit in the Wabi Classic. So a question that I'm asking myself now is, if I'm only going to go up to a 32mm tire all the time, and that's the widest I'm going to run, do I really need all this extra tire clearance? And do I really need the more complicated rim brakes, be it the V brakes or the cantilever brakes? Should I have just gone with a super simple caliper brake and then just dealt with going up to a 32mm wide tire in road variant? Or I actually have a pair of 32mm Gravel Kings over here. These are the semi-slick. I haven't ridden these yet, but I'm going to test these out with the Wabi Classic coming this fall. We're actually in fall right now. So those are just some of the things that I ask myself. Now, don't get it mistaken. I still really enjoy this bike. I'm still happy I got it. Very high quality product, very affordable bikes. Bang for buck, if you can learn how to ride single speed, this is going to rival the ride quality of a $4,000 or $5,000 carbon bike. Yes, it's not going to be as easy on the hills. Yes, you're not going to have disc brakes. You have to spend a little bit more time cleaning the rims, but a single speed bike is overall going to be cheaper. These chains are $12. The freewheel is $100. The chainring's $50. Compare that to a Shimano Ultegra cassette. Things like it's over $100. And then the chains are $80. Just things are a lot more expensive when it comes to the disc brakes and the carbon road bikes than they are with an all-steel single-speed road bike. But if I were you, I would really just question if you really need a gravel bike or if you can get by with 32mm wide tires or even 28mm wide tires. I actually want to test 28mm tires on some gravel trails just because I feel like the past 5 years, 35mm tires used to be the biggest anyone went on any gravel races. Now all of a sudden everyone wants to run 40s or more. You got to go wider, 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 wider. Where 5 or 10 years ago, 28mm, that was like a gravel tire. And then you had your mountain bikes. I would say just be cautious with believing the industry trends. Be cautious with thinking that you need something where you probably don't need it. I don't think I need 43mm wide tires on a single speed rim brake bike like this. If I was going to ride gnarly gravel, I'd probably want to ride a gravel bike with disc brakes and variable gears anyway. It's just a better setup. And then you can, tubeless setup, it's more complicated, but that's just me. Now, I still enjoy this bike. I'm still happy I got it. And at the very worst case, it does give me some redundancy. Here in New York City, I don't have to lock up my bike that much, but now I can actually ride a Wabi and I can lock it up somewhere. And if anything happens to it, I have a second Wabi. So it does give me a little bit of redundancy where I can have one bike that's more of like just a whatever cruiser bike and one bike that's actually I set up like with more expensive parts and much faster and much more fun for those long road rides. However, I'm not really sure I would buy a Wabi Thunder again. If I was in the market for another Wabi, I'd probably look at just getting a Wabi Classic in a custom color, maybe a brighter blue, and I'd probably look at getting some nicer rims, like they have the Velocity A23, I believe they're called, and run a 32mm wide road tire like this tire, or the Grand Prix 5000 and 32mm, and then throw those TRP RG957s with the Salmon Cool Stop pads. Good to go. Bike will be fine. I won't be fussing around with rim brakes as much as I am on this bike. So going forward, I'd probably just pick the one that I like the color of, honestly, because I'm okay just riding 32mm wide tires and not going any wider than that. All in all, Wabi Thunder, you're going to enjoy it whether you get the Wabi Thunder or the Wabi Classic. Even the Wabi Lightning, you can't run wider than 28mm wide tires with the Wabi Lightning, but the Classic and the Thunder, they're pretty close. You've been waiting for a long time to get a Wabi Classic, but now the Thunder's pre-orders are open, and you like the black color or the light gray color of the Thunder, and you don't particularly love the colors of the Classic, I would just get whichever one you like the color of, honestly, because they're pretty close. And just keep in mind, the Thunder, you have more options to run full fenders, you can run racks, you can really set it up to be a lot more rugged and a lot more of a rigged commuter bike. So this is the better bike as far as versatility is concerned. You just got to be able to sort out those brakes. Hope it helped. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.